Liberated from the constraints of childhood, the young Queen Victoria revelled in her new-found freedom. Almost immediately she created a separate household, far from her mother's influence, and the detested John Conroy was quickly ousted from his position. But it was not long before Victoria fell under a more dangerous influence. "I will be good," she had said on her accession, and in the early days of her reign her quiet confidence and interest in matters of state impressed her ministers and won the love and support of her people. Advisers were plentiful, but one man stood out from the rest, the Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne. 40 years her senior, Melbourne's deference and willingness to explain the details of government soon won Victoria's heart. Day after day they spent time alone together, riding for up to 6 hours a day, and soon tongues began to wag about the nature of their relationship and Victoria's lack of the political impartiality that was expected of a constitutional monarch. Victoria refused to listen to the warnings, but matters came to a head when Melbourne was voted out of office and was compelled to tender his resignation. It was customary at the time for the Queen's ladies of the bedchamber to be affiliated to the party in power, but the Queen had become so dependent upon Melbourne and so attached to his party that she refused to alter her household arrangements. The incoming Prime Minister, Robert Peel, declared that it would be impossible for him to take up office if the Queen was so obviously biased towards the opposition, but Victoria refused to yield, and to her delight, under the alarm of Parliament, Melbourne was persuaded to retain power. From Belgium, Uncle Leopold viewed such goings-on with consternation. His niece's attachment to Melbourne had not only caused a scandal, but also a constitutional crisis. There was, however, a perfect solution. The Queen must be distracted from her infatuation with the ageing Prime Minister by a younger, more handsome, and more suitable man. Who better to fill that role than Leopold's nephew, Victoria's first cousin, Albert of Saxe-Coburg? Albert, whom Victoria had met once before, was duly dispatched to England, and despite his seasickness en route and the subsequent pallor of his complexion, Queen Victoria took one look at the handsome young man and was smitten. A gifted painter, musician, and composer, Albert excelled in every field of study, but was also a man with a strong social conscience, high moral standards, and great tact and diplomacy. In no time at all Melbourne was forgotten, and Victoria's heart was consumed with passion for Angel Albert. As protocol demanded, the Queen proposed, and Albert dutifully accepted. They were married on the 10th of February 1840, and the morning after their wedding night the Queen wrote numerous exclamation marks in her diary to express her utter bliss. The Queen's adoration of her handsome husband did not, however, extend so far as a willingness to share her royal duties with him. As she refused to allow him to participate in affairs of state, Albert was reduced to blotting her signature as she worked through her papers. For a man of his intellect, such a life was stifling in the extreme, and to make matters worse he was treated with disdain by many members of the Queen's extended family, and unpopular with the British people simply because he was German. Many other princes in his situation would have sought an outlet for such frustration with mistresses or lavish entertainment. Albert, though, had a great horror of infidelity, and patiently occupied his time making much-needed improvements to the royal palaces, and enduring his wife's tantrums and mood swings by withdrawing from her company until she calmed down. It was only when Victoria was expecting her first child that she began to realize the extent of Albert's brilliance. Though she would go on to have 9 children, she hated being pregnant, feeling rather like a cow or a guinea pig at such times, and her discomfort impeded her work. Little by little she began to allow Albert to help her, and she gradually came to realize that his brilliant mind and exquisite diplomacy were a great asset to the monarchy. Albert took an interest in everything. He sought to improve housing and working conditions for the poor, visited factories and mines, and wrote numerous letters to Parliament urging reform. Soon Queen Victoria referred everything to Albert, seeking his advice on all matters of state, adhering to his suggestions, and allowing him to take all the major decisions in the household, including the care of the children. As will be seen in the next video of this series, Albert was a devoted father, and his influence on Victoria and on the country completely restored the image of the monarchy that had been so tarnished during previous reigns. It is fair to say that it was Albert who in fact created the very best of the Victorian age.